it's Friday the 13th, and I'm about to have an interview with a young journalist from Doncaster. His name's Adam, and he wants to talk about Area 51 and the invasion of Area 51, which is set for September the 20th, 2019. And he's contacted me through Facebook to talk about the invasion, and he wants to do an interview with somebody that's actually been out there on the border of Area 51 to see what the chances are of getting through and all that kind of stuff. So let's see how the interview goes. Just waiting for the phone call. Hi Adam.
Oh, you're right, Anthony. How's it going?
Fine, you?
Yeah, no, brilliant, mate, brilliant. Thanks for agreeing to do this, by the way, pal.
No problem. No problem.
Yeah, okay, so essentially, like, I'm just sort of like going to try and like structure this in sort of like two halves.
Okay.
Basically, like the first lot of questions is just going to be about like Area 51 and stuff like that, and then the second lot I'm going to like see if I can get anything out of you about, you know, stuff like the Knots 91 case and stuff.
It depends if I investigated the case, because back in from 1990 to 1998 I ran a UFO group here in Nottingham.
Yeah, it's just I saw the BBC interview you did where you were you were talking about the you like phoned up the Knots Post and stuff like that.
Oh,
that Green Triangle one.
Oh yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, there was two major cases on that one, so I'll let you start where you want to start.
Yeah, we'll start with Area 51. I don't know if you've I don't know if you're big on Facebook or like that, but have you seen this supposed raid?
Yes. Yeah, the invasion of Area 51 on September 20th.
Yeah, they can't stop us all. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. What do you think about
that? Well, it started off as a joke, and it's like a snowball going down the mountain. It just gathers and gathers more and more, and people now took it seriously. Whether there's a planned invasion to go actually over the border is another thing. But the guy that organised this now, he's turned it into a alien stock festival, like Woodstock, but they're now calling it Alien Stock Festival, and it's going to go on for about 3 or 4 days somewhere, I believe at Rachel, which is about 20 miles northeast of Area 51. But as for going over a border, it's if they say there's going to be, as first stated, 1 million people turning up, it's just going to be a road jam. Even if you get 10,000 or 20,000 people turning up, you're going to need cars and vehicles to get out there, and again, it's still going to be a road jam. The local sheriff, Kerry Lee, they're stating that they've been preparing for it now since July, and the camo dudes and the security at Area 51, they're preparing also for it, and if the police are preparing for it and bringing in extra people from Las Vegas and other places, you can obviously guarantee that they're going to be building up the forces behind the border. So whether it takes place or what, an event will take place, but whoever goes across that border is going to get met with force.
Yes. Yeah, so do you think that they shouldn't bother risking it then?
Absolutely not. Yeah, I mean, the local police out there, they want it to be a friendly event. They want it to be like Woodstock, if you like, but they're calling it Alien Stock. They've got live bands on there, they've got comedians on there, they're putting a stage on and a kind of a festival, making a festival of it, and they want to make it now a celebration about Area 51. We know it's there, we know what happens out there, but don't take the mickey and don't go across the border. they will be met with force, absolutely.
Yeah, so, will you be going to alien stock by any chance?
No. I'm in Nottingham. I've been out there. I went out there in '94 and '96 when this stuff was starting to take off. Before most of the tourists these days started to go out there. We went out there in 1994 for the first time, and we went to the Little Alien Inn, and we got.
Is that you and your wife?
Me and the wife, yeah. Sorry.
Yeah.
And we got talking to a chap in the bar called Chuck Clark, and he offered to take us to the border and show us around the area, which he did, and he took us right to the border. And pointed out the camo dudes on the hills, and they sit there with all the latest equipment looking at you, and they can read number plates from miles away. And we was taken up Whiteside Mountain in 1994, and I think if I remember right, it's about 6,000 feet up, and if on top of this mountain you can look directly across the Groom Lake at the base on the other side. And halfway up this mountain, we was intercepted by a Black Hawk helicopter, and this thing came through the mountain ridge between Whiteside Mountain and Bold Mountain, and it came within about 40 feet of us, just hovering right in front of us, and it was very, very intimidating. You've got nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. You're on a mountainside, one slip and you're down the hill, and he sat there watching us for about 2 minutes, and then he scuttled off back to the base. And that was to say in the middle of nowhere, you know, it's quite frightening when that happens. And eventually we got on top of the mountain, and I says to Chuck Clark, so where's the base? Because you just couldn't see it. And he pointed in the general direction, pointed over the grim dry lake, and right in the distance you couldn't see them unless they were pointed out to you. You've got little boxes on the horizon against the mountainside, and that's Area 51. It was 12 miles away. So you've got this base that sits out in the middle of nowhere, and even with good optics, you're only going to get a good view of it with good optics. Binoculars, video cameras. So yeah, it's nobody stands a chance of going in there, getting that far in, because of the distances involved in the roads.
Do you honestly believe that there is something suspicious at Area 51?
The big mistake people make about this is Area 51 is where they say they've got 9 alien spacecraft on the base. That's totally false. Area 51 is a military base where they test the U-2 spy plane, the SR-71 Blackbirds, all the stealth aircraft and everything in between. That's where it's all tested. It's a test facility. As for the Roswell crash, it might have ended up at Area 51. But the big mistake people make is everything, according to Bob Lazar and other researchers that have come forward, there's a base at S4. Now S4 is 15 miles south over the mountain ridge from Area 51. And according to Bob Lazar, that's where they've got 9 alien spacecraft. And these are in hangars built into the side of the mountain. So there's no alien spacecraft at Area 51. They're at S4, 15 miles south.
So how come you've been to visit Area 51 so many times? If you don't believe that there's...
Well, because you can't see S4, and if they're testing alien technology craft, they're going to be flying them over S4 and in the restricted airspace of Area 51. And many people at night time have seen these craft, strange lights, just sitting there dashing about in the sky as well, making 90-degree turns at 1,000 mile an hour, which are proven not to be conventional aircraft, because the pilot of a conventional aircraft in a 90-degree turn would be splattered against the cockpit. So it's got to be alien technology.
So why do you think there's like such a mystery around Area 51? Why do you think it's inspired so much conspiracy? Does that have something to do with the fact it's quite a mysterious place in the middle of nowhere? Or?
It's a mysterious place because a lot of people don't know what actually goes out there. And it's only been over the last 25 years that people are realising that the workers are now talking. These are the people that's retired and they've been told not to talk, and they're now being 70 and 80 years old, and they're thinking, well, they can't take the pension off me now, I'm going to start and talk. And these are people that's worked on the stealth aircraft from the 1970s and 1980s, like the stealth fighter and stealth bomber, and they're making coating to put on the aircraft to suck up the radar waves, so not to bounce the signal back to radar. And of course this material that they coat the aircraft with, it's highly toxic. And with all the waste, they dug trenches out and they burned it in the trenches. And of course all the smoke's coming back at the guys that's trying to burn this stuff. It's toxic and they got poisoned, and a lot of people have died that worked on the base because they come out in big blisters on the arms and the bodies and the faces, and they got all kinds of internal injuries from this toxic waste. And some of them died, some of them tried to take the base to court. Well, if the base don't exist, you can't take it to court, and that's how Area 51 and the Air Force got away with it. But people are now realising, because people are talking, what the base is actually for. And like I said, the big mistake is people think that alien spacecraft are Area 51. They're not, they're at S4. But Area 51, since day one, was built by the CIA to test a new spy plane, the U-2 spy plane back in the 50s. And it's developed from there, and any secret, super secret aircraft is being tested out there. That's all Area 51 is. And of course, you want to keep things secret, and everybody wants to know what the big secrets are. And people make up stories and, just play along with the secrecy. And it's the big secret base is probably the biggest secret everybody knows.
So, you mentioned that that they allegedly have aliens at S2, was it?
S4.
S4, my mistake. But so do you believe that aliens have visited Earth?
Do I believe aliens have visited Earth? Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah. I've studied this subject for about 40 years, and all you need to answer that question is one good sighting. Whether that craft, when it lands, leaves marks on the ground, whether you have one crash and you pick up the wreckage of the craft and the occupants, all you need is one. But there's thousands of reports each week all over the world.
What was your one good sighting?
My one good sighting?
The one that convinced you.
I've always believed. My belief came from, I was brought up, I won't say there was a religious family, but they preached to us, and I read the Bible and it just threw up more questions, so I started looking for alternative answers, and I ended up looking a bit further than God, if you like, and I ended up on the UFO trail. What's the meaning of life? What's the meaning of mankind being here? Are we the only ones? It's just a standard question, and the more I asked myself questions, the more I looked into the UFO subject, and it answers more questions when you delve deep, like I have done over the 40 odd years. It answers a lot more questions than what religion does. But for my own sightings, in 1994 in Florida, I filmed a UFO in daylight in what became now as the Gulf Breeze sightings, where UFOs came over Gulf Breeze in northwest Florida. It's up near New Orleans. It's on the Panhandle, and UFOs from 1980, it could have been 87, might have been 89. I think it was 1989 till about 1994. UFOs just basically came and posed for the cameras, and the sightings and the video footage and the photographs are some of the best you'll ever see. And there's absolutely no denying that some of these craft are non-human inventions, so they've got to come from somewhere else. I mean, there's guys there that's filmed there, especially a chap called Ed Walters, but if you take Ed Walters out of the picture, who's the main character of photographing and videoing all this stuff, if you take him out of the picture, which most people said, oh, he's a faker, there's still hundreds of other people that's videoed and photographed these sightings. And what these other witnesses have got, as well as Ed Walters, is a craft sitting in the sky at about 50, 60 feet away, and then all of a sudden, with a blink of an eye, it just shoots off within, 3 frames of the video, and estimated to be about 4,000 miles an hour from a standing point. And it just shoots off at 4,000 miles an hour. You can't do that with human technology.
So, what I'm wondering is, quite clearly you think aliens have visited America, but what about the UK?
The reason why you get so many reports is from America is because England is as big as Florida, give or take a few miles, and then you've got the rest of America. Well, you're going to get more news and more information, no matter what subject, out of America than you are of England, because England's just a little place compared to America that's hundreds and hundreds of times bigger. You're going to get more stories, more sightings, whatever subject you pick.
But do you believe that they have visited the UK? Like, do you believe cases like I said earlier, the Knots 91 case?
Yeah, absolutely. In 1991 and 1993, we had 2 massive sightings over Nottingham. In fact, in 1989, there was 2 craft described by over 100 people, the size of a football field each, flying side by side, one just behind the other actually, and there was very low that cloud level, and all people witnessed was the light configuration. They didn't actually see a solid body on the craft. They just saw the light configuration shining through the clouds, the base of the clouds, and there was reported to be a very deep humming noise associated with the sighting.
Did you see it yourself? Or?
I did not see that. No, I didn't see any of them. And I've interviewed a lot of people that did see that, and they said there was no way, like the Ministry of Defence tried to pass it off as refuelling aircraft. And the thing is about refuelling aircraft, the RAF refuel over the North Sea or the Irish Sea. They do not refuel over large cities. Or you got 2 aircraft flying very close one to another. One's full of fuel, all you need is an accident, and you've got burning shredded aircraft coming down on cities. They don't do that. In 1991, we had 2 massive triangle craft fly over from east to west, from Carlton area of Nottingham, and fly towards Ilkeston in Derbyshire. I interviewed over 100 people on that case, all describing the same thing. 2 triangular craft flying very low. The body of the craft was seen. It was matte black. It got a red light in the centre and white lights on each point of the triangle, and a very deep hum noise associated with that sighting also. And again, that happened in 1993, virtually the same kind of sighting. And I also had, during these reports, police officers fill in forms for me and my UFO group, stating that when they first saw it, they radioed back to base that it was that low they thought it was an aircraft coming in over the motorway in trouble, coming to crash land in a nearby field. But by the time they'd raced to the point where they thought it was coming down, there was no wreckage, no crash, and it was the same night as the UFO sighting of 2 triangular craft passing from east to west over Nottingham.
You mentioned a UFO group there.
Yes.
So are you not the only UFO investigator in Nottingham?
This was 1990 to 1998. I disbanded the group in 98 and got on with my life.
So are you not investigating anymore? Or?
I've not investigated since 1998. No, not as in a group capacity. I do all my research now on YouTube, Facebook, and all the old contacts I had have gone. Most of the groups have gone. And most of the UFO research nowadays is based on YouTube and Facebook.
Why do you think it's sort of... Because obviously it's come back up a little bit in popularity with this talk of this Area 51 raid.
Yeah.
But why do you think that UFO conspiracies, like UFO investigators, why do you think that's been on the decline since the 80s and 90s?
Technology has improved. People, instead of going to UFO meetings, I mean, back when I had my UFO group, from 1991 I believe, Sky TV was not long up and running, and I was luckily enough to be in a position where I could have Sky TV, and I had all the UFO programs coming in. Any news report was on there. I recorded it, and I even asked the question once at my UFO meeting, and I says, how many of you got Sky TV? And out of about 100 people, about 4 people put the hand up. And that put me in a position where I was getting more and more information coming into me, because computers were rare back then as well. And it was a case of that all the information, I just happened to be in the right place at the right time. All the information was coming to me like I was, in the right place. And people came to the meetings for all this updated information. And that's since then, everybody nowadays has got mobile phones, the computers, everybody's got a laptop, and the technology is there. If you want to find anything out, what do? You Google it.
But how can you trust what you see on Facebook and YouTube, but not trust your own Ministry of Defence when they tell you that it's not a UFO?
The best way to do that is interview people. If somebody, like me, I was running this UFO group, if somebody reported a sighting, I would hopefully go out and interview these people. I've interviewed hundreds of people, and when you get people saying this craft, it sat there, it got a silver body, it was your typical saucer shaped silver craft just sitting there, there was no noise, and then you get somebody come up and saying it was a cloud, it was the belly of a batch of seagulls, and you think, how ridiculous, and yet the skeptics believe that. So, I prefer to believe the witness, where if it was in a court of law and saying they'd seen somebody stabbed, you would take that as evidence. And yet, because it's a UFO and people don't believe, now people don't believe for certain things. If I found out that if you're a religious person and you're brought up to believe in God and this, that and the other, if you get something that interferes with you, this is especially in America where you have the Bible belts, if you're presented with the fact of UFOs, you'll be dismissed because it interferes with their religious beliefs. And it was the same. I'm also into ghost hunting, and I was at Chillingham Castle up Northumberland quite a few years ago, and I was walking around and I said to this woman that was standing there, who was basically a guide giving information about anything in this particular room, and I says to her, is this room haunted? She says, now Chillingham Castle is very haunted. I believe in ghosts. I've seen ghosts myself. And I says to her, is this room haunted? She says, oh, I don't believe any of that. And I says to her, are you Catholic? She says, yeah. And it's because of her Catholic belief, she does not believe in ghosts. And it's the same with UFOs. It's the same with UFOs.
I wasn't expecting to ask you this question when I started interviewing you. But do you believe in alien ghosts?
I've never been asked that before. Alien ghosts. I can't say. Me personally, I mean, for me to answer that seriously, I would have to be on their planet in some of their oldest buildings to see if they are basically human-like, which I assume they are. They've got to have a spirit that if it doesn't move on, it's going to possess that area. And for that question to be answered seriously, I would say, do I believe in alien ghosts? I suppose it's possible, but you've got to be on their planet to view them, I should think. Unless you go out to Roswell. I don't know. I've never really thought about that.
So, the major alien conspiracy theories like Roswell, Phoenix Lights, are there any of the major alien conspiracies that you can identify and be like, that's crackpot?
Again, it's all down to how much you research. I mean, back in, I think it was Aurora in America, there was an alleged UFO crash back in the 1898, I think it was. And they reckon that aliens were crashed in this town, and they got the craft and smashed it to bits and chucked the bodies down a well. And in fact, the bodies were actually buried in the cemetery. But when somebody about 20 or 30 years ago decided we want to exhume this grave and look at the alien, they applied for permission to dig up the alien at this graveyard. And while the court case was going on, and it came back no, once the case was over, they went back to the grave and found it had already been exhumed and somebody took it. So whether the CIA had been in there and dug it up and took away, or made out they had, or what, nobody knows. But recently, over the last 20 years, they dug up the well. The guy that owned the land in Aurora, they dug up his well where they reckon they pushed down a load of the wreckage. And they went all the way down to the bottom of the well, and they found absolutely nothing. So whether that happened or what, I don't know.
I'm just wondering, why do you think there's such an intense cover-up of aliens? If so many people have spotted them, why do you think it's still considered a conspiracy? And why do you think there's such a cover-up of it?
There's two reasons for this. Well, it's basically in one, but it goes into two. The reasons for the cover-up is one, the country you live in, whether it's England, Russia, America, the governments want you to own your allegiance. So if you go to war, you're British. If you go to war, you're American or you're Russian or Chinese or Japanese or whatever. Your allegiance belongs to your country. Okay, so therefore you are part of that country, and nobody wants the world, no matter how goody people are, nobody wants the world, the governments don't want the world to own the allegiance to one planet as Earthlings, because it won't work, because you've got so many differences in people and their beliefs. It won't work as we are Earthlings, no matter how much people try and shove that on you. The other reason is technology. If you've got an alien spacecraft and you've got it out to S4 or even Area 51, if that's what you prefer, you've got alien technology, you want to back engineer that. So you get the latest secret alien technology, and you can put that into your own inventions, and you'll be better than Russia, better than China or Japan. You know, so you'll have the upper hand all the time. So you're converting alien technology for your own use, whether it's weapons or technology. The other reason is if you've got an alien spacecraft that can travel across space, and it doesn't use fossil fuels. So you're talking about an electromagnetic engine that's allegedly propelled with, oh God, what did Bob Lazar say he's propelled with? I can't remember the name of his fuel. But if you've got an alien craft where it propelled itself across the solar system, not just the solar system, but our universe, you're covering hundreds of light years, and you've got to know what this is powered by. And if you get that technology, let's say it's electromagnetic engines, and you develop this electromagnetic engines that does not use fossil fuels, you're going to wipe out fossil fuel industries, which is coal, gas, coal, gas, oil, anything that produces electricity like that. You're going to be wiping off trillions and trillions of dollars of profit from the fossil fuel industry because it could just render it all useless. And what do they want? They want money.
Fair play. Like, I'll tell you something. Like, you leave no stone unturned with this. You've got an answer for everything.
Okay.
Yeah, no. It's been brilliant, mate. But like, last question I really want to ask you is, a lot of people when they hear, you know, alien like investigator or something like that, they might just sort of snigger. Like, why do you think people should like take you and like what you've investigated more seriously? Because you quite clearly got like a informed opinion.
Well, basically, right at the very beginning of all this, when I was about 14 or 15, I was looking for answers, just because the religious questions to me just didn't add up. I even fell out with the religious teachers at school, and I just started searching for more realistic answers, and that's the path I ended up on. And it was basically it's my search for the answers, and whether I even fell out with my mum and dad about it. They think I'm crackers, but they're the ones that believed in God. Hang about, I used to believe in Santa and the Easter Bunny as well. But you know, as you grow up, you just don't believe that stuff anymore. And for me, it was a personal search for the truth, for what I think is the truth, which stands more scrutiny than what most other things do. And a lot of UFO investigators usually end up basically on the same track. So when it comes down to whether people think I'm the cracked one, I don't care. It's up to them. If they want to look at the evidence, fine, I'll help them look at the evidence and I'll present them, and it's up to them to make their mind up at the end of the day. I'm not there to change their minds. If they want to look at the evidence, fine. If they don't, they want to call me crackers. You know, it works both ways. I don't mind what people think about me anymore.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely brilliant. I actually rate that so much. I think it's brilliant. Like, you quite clearly got quite an impassioned, informed view, and you just don't really give a flying what people think of it.
Yeah.
So I do need to ask you permission for one thing before I go.
Yeah.
There's a photo of you I found on your Facebook actually when I came across your profile of you at Area 51. Am I able to use that in the article or?
Yeah, go ahead, don't mind me, yeah.
Yeah, brilliant.
Yeah, sitting at the sign at Area 51.
Yeah,
is that the one?
With the sign at Area 51.
Yeah.
I just wanted to just to sort of prove that you've been there in case like anyone's like replying onto it like, mate, he's clearly chatting shit, like, you know, it's just like...
Yeah. What I could do also is send you pictures through Messenger and of all the photographs that I've not published before. Looking down,
that'd be absolutely brilliant.
You're looking down the road. I mean, the thing is, what you got to remember. Let me go back to Area 51. The thing is about Area 51, you've got Highway 375, which is the main drag from Las Vegas and Lincoln County area, all that way. Highway 375 passes Area 51 turn off. It passes the town of Rachel, which is, I mean, the last count, I believe there's about 110 people living there, most of them living in what we call caravans. But that road, it just goes for miles and miles past Tonopah back into the distant mountains. And you've got one turn off for Area 51, and then you've got another one for the back gate, which is north. This road from the highway to the actual border signs is 11 miles long. Okay, it's as straight as the Roman road, and you can see people coming from it for miles down there, because any vehicle kicks up the biggest cloud of smoke, well, dust, desert dust. So you can see vehicles coming from miles and miles back. If you're going to get, let's say 5,000 cars, let's just drop the numbers, you're going to get 5,000 cars. It's a two-way, it's a two-lane, it's not even a lane, it's just dirt track. It's not a paved road like you and I drive on. This turns into the desert, and it's just a desert track straight to the gate. And it's 11 miles long. That will be overcrowded. There's nowhere to park. You can't park in the ditch. You're going to be blocking the road. Then you go right at the very bottom of that. You go right, then it dips down, and that's where the border signs are. And to your left and to your right, you've got hills that go up. On the left hand side, you've got the old Freedom Ridge that people used to climb, used to be able to climb and look into the mountain, look over the mountain into the base. And on the right hand side, you've got the other ridges that lead up towards Whiteside Mountain. It's absolutely impassable by any vehicle. So all you've got is a bottleneck at this, where the Area 51 warning signs are, do not pass. Okay, then if you take that according to Google Maps, you bypass them signs, go about 1.5 miles down the track, round the bend that you can't see round the bend. You've got a guard shack there, and then you've got another 12 mile across the lake bed to the actual buildings. So there's absolutely no chance of anybody getting there. So if they do, anybody crosses that border, the Lincoln County Sheriff's Department say they're fully prepared. They've been planning for this event since July. It's the police's job to patrol this, make sure everything goes out fine. But if anybody crosses the border, the police will arrest people. And if they go beyond the border, then it's the military, and the military are then responsible, not the police. So once these people are over the border, they're going to be in military hands, and that is somewhere you just don't want to be.
You know, you pretty much like hit on every point that I wanted you to hit on, to be fair. It's been a great interview, to be honest with you, mate. It's been absolutely brilliant. Thank you very much, Pat. Have you got any additional comments or anything like that you just want to say at the end, or?
Well, I'm looking forward to seeing what happens, and I think if anybody crosses that border, they deserve all they get. The Americans, they've been working hard to protect their country with the latest technologies, and that's what they develop out there. It's a bit like Silicon Valley, but for hardware like aircraft and all that kind of stuff. And of course, they want to protect their goodies, and they'll protect it at any cost. I've heard of cases where people have gone over the border in a light aircraft and been shot down. And that has been low key. It's very hard to find that report, but the report's there. And people, if you look on YouTube of people that have accidentally drove over the border, they are stopped and they are arrested, and all at gunpoint. And contrary to what you see on films and a lot of the things you read, there is no fence. There is no fence unless you're at the back gate. There's a fence at the back gate, but there's no fence at the main way in. There's no there's just the border signs and little orange posts that stick up.
Yeah. Jesus. But yeah, no. Thanks a lot, Anthony. That's like I say, it's been a great interview. And if you got any photos, feel free to send them across, mate. Cheers.
Yeah, we'll do. Yeah. What's this for? Is it for what kind of a project is it? Is it for paper or what?
I'm the deputy editor for my uni magazine.
Okay.
Do you know Nottingham Trent?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, it's for the university magazine that we got their platform.
Right. Okay. So this actually goes into print then, or is it an online magazine?
This will be going online most likely because our print edition for September's already. It's already in print now. To be fair, it's just
right.
waiting to be distributed.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, this will be going online. I'm going to get it written over the weekend, and it'll be up on Monday most likely.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Send me the link.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I definitely will. It's one of those things like this whole like Area 51 thing and stuff like that, and obviously like you're pretty much like the only profiled investigator in knots.
Yeah.
And I thought like. With a lot of people just sort of like making jokes about this whole thing, it's worth getting the opinion of someone who's like
actually been there. Yeah, yeah,
like,
yeah.
And you've obviously like spent like such a like large portion of your life looking into this and stuff. Like,
yeah. I'm with you. Yeah. 1994 and 1996. Yeah, great years. Yeah.
Yeah, no, seriously, I can't believe you won't be a wife. That's incredible. That's weirdly cute. I love it.
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
But yeah, no.
Right.
Thank you so much.
If you think of anything else, just either send me a message or give me a quick ring, and I'll help you with any questions you've got.
Yeah, brilliant. No worries, mate. Like I said, I'll send you a link on Monday so you can send me over a few of those.
Send you some in a bit. Okay.
Yeah, nice one. Thank you very much, Anthony. Have a good day, mate.
Okay, Adam. Thanks a lot. Cheers. All
right.
Bye.
See you, mate. Bye.
Bye.